Hi, I'm Luke and welcome back to Lion's Whisky Reviews. Thank you for joining me. Today I'll be showcasing one of the hallmarks of Japanese whiskey, that being the Yamazaki 12. Now I'm sorry about the delay on this video, I was ill over there last week. Now, the Yamazaki Distillery is the oldest in Japan, being started in 1923. Japanese whiskey itself is heavily influenced by Scotch. The Japanese saw Scottish whiskey production at the time as the gold standard, and so took the techniques of Scotland and added a Japanese take on them in order to create a brand new region of whiskey. Suntory first set up the Yamazaki Distillery in the Osaka prefecture and appointed Takatsuru Masataka as factory director in 1924. Takatsuru had a history in Scottish whiskey production, having studied in Scotland from 1918 in the art of whiskey making. With Takatsuru's guidance, the Yamazaki Distillery was able to produce its first whiskey in 1929 called Shirofuda. But, unfortunately, due to a disagreement with Shinjiro, Takatsuru left the company in 1934 and went on to later found the Nika Distillery in Hokkaido Prefecture. This is now known for Yoichi whiskey to this day, which alongside the Suntory whiskies make up the biggest players in the Japanese market. Part of what makes Japanese whiskey stand out, apart from their meticulous perfectionism, is the use of Mizunara casks. Now, Mizunara is a very expensive and rare wood which can be sourced in Japan, and when used in a cask, it adds a very dynamic layer to whiskey, adding aromas such as sandalwood and Japanese incense to a whiskey. Now, of course, the Yamazaki 12 itself has been aged in Mizunara casks, which helps to give it publish a new character. It has also been aged in American oak and also sherry casks. The Yamazaki 12 was bottled at 43%, meaning that chill filtration has likely occurred. However, I do believe the colour of Yamazaki 12 to be natural, but I could not find absolute confirmation on this. What really makes Yamazaki 12 itself stand out on the shelves is the use of the calligraphy Yamazaki that it shares both on the box and the bottle design. You know, when you walk into a whiskey shop or a bar and you see a bottle of Yamazaki 12, your gaze is immediately drawn to it. It also has the unique bottle design that it shares with the Hakushu whiskey, which to this day we've come to know as being, the Japanese bottle design. As always, if you have a bottle of Yamazaki 12 at home, feel free to pour and join in with me as we try the whiskey. Now, why don't we pour a glass of Yamazaki 12? Well, on the nose, the fruitiness, yes, it's almost a bit of cherry. There's also what's starting to come through, I think a fruit cake, yeah, it's definitely a fruit cake. There's this lovely sandalwood, that you're getting from the aroma. I think also a hint of vanilla. Now, as the aroma is developing, the fruitiness is starting to increase, and there's really a touch of banana bread starting to come through almost. It makes for a rather complex smell that's really quite delightful. Now, I wonder how it actually tastes. That's very nice. The whiskey itself is round and warm. Your mouth gets taken on a Mizunara journey. The Mizunara and the hint of fruit really start to take a hold. Your tongue is almost like peppered as well. There's butteriness and there's pepper. And there's also a nice bit of a hint of a dry sherry that's really balancing the flavour, The Yamazaki 12 has a really nice balance, You've got that fruitiness, you've got the hint of the Mizunara, you've also got the touch of the sherry, and having all these different complex flavours come together truly does make it Japanese. Yeah, as the flavours develop, the oak Mizunara flavour alongside that fruitiness that also starts to develop into being like sultanas or raisins, alongside the sherryness, really creates a rich profile. The finish itself is also rather long. You know, the Mizunara and a hint of raisin really takes a hold of the mouth. You know, your mouth just emanates the Japanese qualities of Mizunara. There's also a little bit of spice left on the mouth as well. That really gives, you know, Japanese whiskey, in this case Yamazaki 12, a very distinctive style that's complex and also very interesting. Now, to conclude, Yamazaki 12 is a deep, rich and complex whiskey that is honestly a delight to drink, but one issue that has not yet been raised is the matter of the price. Now, before the giant Japanese whiskey boom that we've seen over the last decade, Yamazaki 12 could have been easily sourced for prices as low as £40. However, unfortunately to this day, the price has gone up quite a lot. You know, I bought my bottle of Yamazaki 12 2 years ago for £110, and nowadays the price of Yamazaki 12 is anything between £110 and £130. Now, obviously this is very expensive, and at this price point, you can get high age statement Scottish whiskies that offer similar, if not more, depth and complexity. But the Yamazaki 12 is very unique, and for a whiskey that you may only want to drink on special occasions or rarely, you know, you may still feel that the price is worth it. You know, personally, I've had this bottle for over 2 years and it's, you know, less than half drank, and I really do love it. But even if you don't want to buy a bottle, if you see a bottle of the Yamazaki 12 in a bar, which you most certainly will in any whiskey bar, why not give it a try? As long as that's a price you feel is reasonable, you'll be getting a flavour profile and aromas that you've never truly experienced before in a whiskey. I would love if you've enjoyed this video to please let me know in the comment section down below what are your favourite Japanese whiskies, and if you've ever tried Yamazaki 12, what your thoughts are on it. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, I'll be so grateful if you could like, comment and do subscribe if you've not done so yet. Now do join me next week for the first review of the year, when I'll be doing something a little bit different. We're looking at some of the budget offerings of Aldi. Now, do the whiskies that Aldi offer largely disappoint, or are there some surprise hits amongst the three? Do find out on next week's Lions Whiskey Review.